Dogs don't cry the way we do. They don't write breakup songs or post cryptic Instagram stories, but make no mistake, when your dog is upset, they're broadcasting it loud and clear, just not in a language most humans bother to learn. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? Because we spend so much time trying to teach dogs our commands, our routines, our expectations, and yet we rarely stop to ask what they're trying to teach us, what they're showing us in the silence, in the stillness, in the subtle shifts of their body language that scream louder than any bark ever could. You see, the myth of the happy dog is one of the most persistent lies in pet culture. This idea that a wagging tail equals joy, that a dog who eats and plays and doesn't bite must be emotionally fine, but the truth is far more uncomfortable and far more important, because dogs, like people, perform happiness when they feel unsafe. They mask discomfort to avoid conflict, and they suppress emotion to maintain connection, especially with the humans they love most, which means that if your dog is upset and you're missing it, you're not just failing them. You're failing the relationship. So let's break this down, not with bullet points or sterile advice, but with emotional clarity and scientific depth, because understanding your dog's emotional state isn't just about being a good pet owner. It's about being a better human, and if that sounds dramatic, good, because it is, and it should be, because dogs don't get to choose their environment, their schedule, or their emotional safety. We do, and that responsibility should feel heavy, because it is. Now, when we talk about canine emotion, we're not talking about anthropomorphized nonsense. We're talking about real, measurable, observable emotional states that have been studied in behavioral science, veterinary medicine, and animal psychology. And while dogs don't experience emotion exactly the way humans do, they absolutely feel fear, anxiety, frustration, boredom, grief, and even something resembling shame, though that last one is often misunderstood and misrepresented in viral videos that confuse stress signals with guilt, which is a whole other topic we'll get into later. Let's start with the basics. Dogs communicate primarily through body language, and while vocalizations like barking, whining, and growling do play a role, the real emotional data is in the posture, the ears, the eyes, the tail, the tension in the muscles, the way they move through space, and the way they respond to stimuli. And once you learn to read these signals, you'll start to see a whole emotional world unfolding in front of you, one that's been there the whole time, waiting for you to notice. So what does an upset dog look like, really? Not the cartoon version, not the exaggerated TikTok clip, but the real, raw, subtle truth of canine distress. And to answer that, we need to look at 10 key signs, each one a doorway into your dog's emotional state, each one a signal that something's off, something's wrong, something needs your attention, and not just your attention, but your empathy, your patience, and your willingness to change. First, pinned back ears. This is one of the most common and most misunderstood signals, because while perked ears often indicate alertness or curiosity, ears that are pulled back and flattened against the head usually mean fear, discomfort, or submission. And the context matters, of course, because some breeds have naturally floppy ears. But even then, the muscle tension and positioning can tell you a lot, especially when combined with other signals. Second, excessive grooming or licking. This one's tricky, because dogs do groom themselves naturally, and licking can be a sign of affection or habit. But when it becomes obsessive, when your dog is constantly licking their paws, their legs, or even the air, it's often a stress response, a way to self-soothe. And in some cases it can lead to physical damage, like raw skin or infections, which means the emotional distress has crossed into physical harm. Third, lethargy or low energy. Now, this can be a sign of illness, and you should always rule out medical causes first, but emotional withdrawal often looks like a dog who's just not there, who's lying down more than usual, who doesn't respond to cues, who seems disconnected from their environment. And while it's easy to dismiss this as just tired, it's often a sign that something deeper is going on, something that needs your attention. Fourth, changes in appetite. Dogs are creatures of habit, and when their eating patterns shift, it's usually a red flag, whether they're eating less, eating more, or refusing food altogether. And while physical illness is always a possibility, emotional stress can absolutely impact appetite, just like it does in humans. And ignoring this signal is like ignoring a flashing warning light on your dashboard. Fifth, avoidance or hiding. This one's heartbreaking, because dogs are social animals. And when they start to isolate, when they hide under furniture, avoid eye contact, or retreat from interaction, it's often a sign of emotional overwhelm, and it's easy to take it personally, to feel rejected. But the truth is, your dog isn't pushing you away. They're trying to protect themselves, and that's a signal you need to honor, not punish. Sixth, aggression or irritability. This is where things get complicated, because aggression is often labeled as bad behavior, when in reality, it's a symptom, not a cause, a reaction to stress, fear, or frustration. And while it needs to be managed carefully, it also needs to be understood, because punishing a dog for expressing distress is like yelling at someone for crying. It doesn't solve the problem, it just teaches them to hide it. Seventh, pacing or restlessness. This is a classic anxiety signal, a dog who can't settle, who moves in circles, who seems agitated without a clear trigger, and while it can be caused by physical discomfort, it's often emotional, especially in dogs who've experienced trauma, neglect, or inconsistent routines. And the key here is to look for patterns, to notice when and where the pacing happens and what might be triggering it. Eighth, reduced interest in play. Dogs are playful by nature, and when that spark dims, when the toys go untouched, when the tail doesn't wag, it's often a sign of emotional fatigue, of a dog who's checked out, who's lost joy. And while it's tempting to try and force play, the better move is to ask why the joy is gone and what you can do to bring it back. Ninth, unusual vocalizations. This includes whining, barking, howling, or even complete silence. And while every dog has a unique vocal profile, sudden changes in volume, frequency, or tone can indicate distress, especially when combined with other signals. And the key here is to listen not just to the sound, but to the emotion behind it, to the message your dog is trying to send. 10th, weight fluctuation. This is often overlooked, but emotional stress can absolutely impact metabolism, appetite, and digestion, leading to weight gain or loss. And while it's not always dramatic, even subtle changes can be meaningful, especially when combined with other signs, and tracking your dog's weight over time can give you valuable insight into their emotional health. Now that we've covered the signs, let's talk about the causes, because understanding what's upsetting your dog is just as important as recognizing that they're upset. And while every dog is different, there are some common emotional triggers that show up again and again, and they're often things we don't think about, things we dismiss, things we accidentally create without realizing the impact they have. Environmental triggers are a big one. Loud noises, unfamiliar people, travel, construction, even changes in weather can cause stress, especially in sensitive dogs. And while some of these are unavoidable, many can be mitigated with preparation, routine, and emotional support. Because dogs don't just react to the world, they absorb it, and when the world feels chaotic, they feel unsafe. Routine disruption is another major factor. Dogs thrive on predictability, and when their schedule shifts, when walks are missed, meals are late, or bedtime changes, it can cause confusion, anxiety, and emotional instability. And while flexibility is important, consistency is kindness, especially for dogs who rely on structure to feel safe and secure. Owner behavior is a huge influence. Dogs are emotional mirrors, and when we're stressed, angry, distracted, or emotionally absent, they feel it, they absorb it, and they respond to it, often in ways we don't recognize. And this is where self-awareness becomes a tool, not just for personal growth, but for canine care, because your energy isn't invisible, it's contagious. Medical issues can also cause emotional distress. Pain, illness, hormonal shifts, and neurological conditions can all impact mood, behavior, and emotional regulation. And this is why regular vet checkups are essential, not just for physical health, but for emotional well-being. Because sometimes the sadness isn't psychological, it's physiological. Social isolation is another silent killer. Dogs need interaction, stimulation, and connection. And when they're left alone for long periods, when they're ignored, when they're treated like furniture, they suffer, quietly, deeply, and often invisibly. And the damage can be long-lasting, even if the symptoms are subtle, and even if the silence feels normal. So what do you do when your dog is upset? How do you respond, not with panic or punishment, but with empathy, strategy, and emotional intelligence? Because reacting isn't enough. You need to understand, adapt, and support in ways that actually help, not just soothe your guilt. First, observe. Don't assume, don't project, don't jump to conclusions based on one moment or one behavior, because emotional patterns matter more than isolated incidents. And your job isn't to diagnose in a flash, it's to notice over time, to connect the dots, and to listen with your eyes. Second, create emotional safety. This means predictable routines, calm energy, gentle voice tones, and environments that feel stable. Because dogs don't just need food and shelter, they need emotional shelter. And that starts with how you show up, how you speak, how you move, and how you respond when things go wrong. Third, enrichment matters. Mental stimulation, physical exercise, interactive toys, puzzle feeders, training games, and social interaction all contribute to emotional health. And a bored dog is often an anxious dog, a frustrated dog, or a depressed dog. And solving that doesn't require magic, it requires effort. Fourth, vet check. Always rule out medical causes because emotional distress can be a symptom of physical pain, and treating the body often heals the mind. And skipping this step is like trying to fix a broken engine by repainting the car. It might look better, but it won't run. Fifth, behaviorist help. If the distress is chronic, severe, or escalating, don't guess. Don't Google, get professional support, because trained behaviorists can decode the signals, build a plan, and help you rebuild trust, and that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Sixth, mirror check. Ask yourself what energy you're bringing into the room, what stress you're leaking, what patterns you're repeating, because your dog isn't just reacting to the world, they're reacting to you, and if you want them to feel safe, you have to be safe to feel around. And here's the part most people skip, the deeper truth, the uncomfortable truth, the truth that makes this more than just a checklist or a tutorial. Because dogs reflect us, they absorb us, they mirror our moods, our patterns, our chaos, and our calm. And if your dog is upset, the first question isn't, what's wrong with them? It's, what am I missing? This isn't just about fixing your dog, it's about becoming the kind of person your dog feels safe with, the kind of person who listens, who adapts, who learns, and who doesn't treat emotional signals like inconveniences, but like invitations to grow, to connect, and to heal. Because your dog isn't broken, they're broadcasting. You just need to learn the language. If this hit home, if you saw your dog in any of these signs, don't scroll past it. Subscribe to Doggy Dog for more emotionally sharp, scientifically grounded breakdowns that help you become the kind of person your dog actually feels safe with. Because understanding your dog isn't just kindness, it's character.